You're in the War Room live on our nation's capital, just yards from the Supreme Court. We're I think, the 18th largest podcast in the nation, all types, and the 30th in the world with entertainment, marital advice, sports, all of it. So, and podcast is just, we're ubiquitous. We're everywhere. We're on cable, we're on streaming, we're on YouTube, Pluto TV, all of it. So we're very proud to have our distribution partners that support us nonstop. And we're here with really, I think, the hottest podcast, even hotter than the War Room. It's Matt Gaetz, the firebrand. And listen, he's a firebrand for a reason. Gaetz could do a lot of different things. He could be a huge media personality. He could be on TV. He could be out in Hollywood doing all sorts of things. He's not. He's actually in Congress. He's representing not just the people of the Pensacola area and western Florida, the Panhandle, but also he's one of the top voices and one of the top young voices in the MAGA movement. So what people, we have this story in the Washington Post today about the show and the podcast and Rudy and all that, and this audience is metastasizing every day. And the question gets to be, is this a futile exercise, or is this exercise? You were there at the end when he put it on his shoulders, took it across the goal line, and as we preached for months and months and months, the game day victory is going to be unbelievable, right? But you could see that the fix was in, or as Tariq calls it, the finesse. Right, that it was going to be in, and they were just going to hold back, like they used to do in Broward County and was in Palm Beach County in Florida. Wait till Pensacola and the Panhandle thing, and hold back. And if we're within striking distance, all of a sudden we're going to find what we got to find. But now we're in it. They're going to have a press conference at noon over at the RNC headquarters. We've got this situation in Wisconsin. We'll give you more details later, but it's a real fight in Wisconsin. You got a thing in Michigan where they're talking about decertifying this or not able to certify it. You've got Georgia with the great lawyer Lynn Wood on this consent order that's never been public, that he's fighting in federal court, representing the citizens of Georgia, not the campaign. You've got Grinnell, Adam Laxalt, and Matt Schlapp, who are guys that are all business. They're in Nevada, and they're saying, hey, this thing stinks to high heaven. You got the 135,000 in the supervisor's race that was thrown out. You've got 15,000 either dead or moved. They say there's going to be a lot more. And we're not even talking about Arizona, but you got 5 battles going on. We're in federal court in Pennsylvania. You've seen that they didn't enforce the injunction. Is this a rearguard action, or is the movement spending its time in assisting the president and closing the victory on November 3rd?
If we do not fix this, if we do not expose this fraud, they're not going to get worse at it. They're going to get better at it, and we will never win another national election again. Those are the stakes in these fights in the several states that you've discussed. And I don't think that, to really get a full audit across the enterprise, we have to flip every one of these states at once. Here's my prediction, Steve. We flip one of these states that the media has called for Joe Biden, and the whole veneer comes down. The whole fiction that he's President-elect Joe Biden and that this thing is over is eroded if you're able to see that there was fraud sufficient to flip a state. Because then I think the American people will say, well, wait a second. If you lied to us about Georgia, we got to ask some more questions about Wisconsin. Or if you lied to us about Wayne County, Michigan, how are we supposed to believe what went on in Fulton County, right? And I think that asking those tough questions is an important obligation the president has, not for his own political fortunes, but for the future of a populist movement that is very much opposed by the people who run these places where they're more susceptible to fraud.
Do you think, look, you're a pretty smart lawyer, do you think in this situation there's enough, as you see it, fraud on a scale that can actually flip it back to Trump? Or has the stuff been so commingled and so messed up that you just got to go the decertification, which eventually kicks it to the House of Representatives?
That will be a tough case to make in the absence of one of these states flipping, and the state that is trending.
I guarantee a state's got to flip.
Well, a state's got to flip, and I think Georgia is really on a positive trajectory for the president. I mean, look, they're not finding errors in Georgia of tens or hundreds of ballots. I mean, they're finding discrepancies that are in the thousands of ballots. The state Republican Party chairman walking through how these incorrect tabulations result in 9,000 vote swing toward the president, and that's only looking at a small batch of counties. Imagine when they go statewide and really look at this thing.
Whereas people are asking us every day, where's Kemp? Kemp does not exist if Donald Trump's not actively working for him to win, to beat Stacey Abrams. Where is Kemp? This lieutenant governor is a disaster. The Secretary of State is the worst. He's on MSNBC every day burying the president. How can this possibly happen in this party?
Well, I think the Secretary of State is largely covering for this consent decree with the Stacey Abrams crowd that we talked about. And, like, you know, for those who are listening who don't understand the significance of these decrees, what happens is when people don't have the power to change the laws through the elected legislature, they just go and sue. And then that lawsuit becomes a platform for the far left to sort of come together with the corporate elite establishment right and cut a deal that cuts out the representative process.
So
that
what
we
they
are
can't
supposed to
get,
have in
they
our
can't get a
republic.
statutory change because they don't really have the stroke. So
Right.
what they do is they get they sue, then get in a room with nobody watching, cut a consent, and that consent essentially becomes statutory.
And once a judge signs off on that, once the parties sign off on it, these private agreements entered into by litigants have the force of law that exceeds what the elected representatives of the people would advocate for and support. And when we talk about something as significant as voting, that is crazy. But to your point, the Democrats lawyered up. Stacey Abrams went and muscled up in the courtroom, and they got these things done while we were sort of planning the next Make America Great Again rally, which was fun and turned out many millions more people, but that I think lacked a requisite focus on the mechanics of voting, and we've got to get better at that.
They take it very holistically, like Stalin. Don't tell me who votes, tell me who counts the votes. They take victory in a very holistic way. We take it we bifurcate it. And that means that they always think of
Well,
it
and like
smarter.
how in Georgia, where you've got these discrepancies of like thousands upon thousands of votes, do you have two elections officials like signing off and certifying it, right? That's happening because there is not sufficient transparency and review. And I really believe that the dam could break open in Georgia. That could be the case where we find out the media lied to us, that the process was rotten, and then we really start to drill down in these
There's
other
all kind of
places.
work coming. I know we got John Frederick. We'll try to get him on maybe in the second hour before the press conference. He's actually shifted his operation to Georgia. He says the rumor down there today is Kemp is going to try to expedite signing off on a certification either today or tomorrow to try to get this in back of it. Not going to happen. You still go to court.
Well, I mean, that's not helpful. I mean, like this is.
But how can? But for our audience, how can that happen? You're part of it. You're an outrider because you're a firebrand for the movement, you're a firebrand for the president, you're a firebrand for MAGA. But how can we have establishment Republicans who basically owe their existence to Trump's active campaigning for him, turn on not just him, but turn on really the fairness of an election?
You know, it's a tragic disappointment, but it perpetuates, Steve. I mean, I've spent the last 2 days in these organizing sessions with the Republican conference.
Yeah, why are you guys even here in D.C.?
Well, I mean,
Seriously.
I can walk you through that, but this is an important point
Okay.
regarding the future of the movement. You know, everybody stands up in the leadership and pats themselves on the back because Republicans won seats, and everybody's like, oh, we're beating the Democrats, we're clawing back to the majority, and no one gives Trump the credit. They all act as though like this was some movement driven by the establishment Republicans in Washington, and the reality is,
impossible.
in a lot of these districts, it was the enthusiasm for the president that drug Republicans over the finish line, and I'm certainly glad that happened. We want that to happen. Politics is a team sport, and that, by the way, is perhaps an important lesson for the governor of Georgia as well.
Well, so let's go back to this. You think that in D.C. because the House was fantastic. I mean, it was a great job. Obviously, that was driven by this movement and the president going around and delivering that mass, particularly in the districts, the Dirty 30 that we started to take back, right? Which, you remember, the ones that survived are all over Nancy Pelosi, that we can't do this again. In 2022, if the Trump movement is as powerful as it is today, we'll all get wiped out. You're saying right now, internally to D.C., that's not what the narrative is.
No, we believe that we took back a lot of these seats because of fantastic candidate recruitment and hard campaigns on the ground, and certainly that was a contributing factor.
Yes.
No doubt. I don't want to diminish that at all, but this movement is at its best when we are fired up for our transformational president, for our leader. And whether Donald Trump is in the White House or Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster, he is the leader of this movement, and he is the inspiration behind it.
So in this segment, we're going to wrap up. We're going to come back to what's happening in the House with Nancy Pelosi and the future of this movement. But for our audience, this is a fight worth having right now. Not about the future, but about right now to try to close in this victory.
Absolutely. And I think if we can get the remedies of ballot exclusion anywhere, it will create a tremendous amount of positive momentum for us. But Jack's absolutely right. We need patriots to stand up and tell the truth about what they've seen and what they've done.
In Patriots, why are there not more people going to the sticks on Capitol Hill? You have Jim Jordan, you've got the guys who are closely aligned with this movement. But why is it just silence? It's pretty stunning.
This is a tough town when you're a firebrand. This is not a town that seeks the firebrand. This is a town that seeks someone who will come and conform. And, you know, the benefits of conforming are great for the establishment. And for the fighters, we've just got to get out there and keep slinging it.
Okay, Matt Gaetz is with us. He is the Firebrand. The book is called Firebrand. Dispatches from the front lines of the MAGA revolution. It's a must read. First off, it's entertaining. You actually, what's so unique, you actually wrote this book yourself.
I did. Yeah.
Very proud of that, right? So it's because a lot of these get ghosted. Also about the podcast. Let's get the artwork up from the podcast. You got 30 seconds for the end of the segment. Tell people, how do you do the podcast?
Hot Takes with Matt Gaetz each and every weekday. If you want to know what I'm thinking and the news we're reviewing and the inside, behind the scenes negotiations in the Congress, you can tune in on your commute and get some hot takes from me.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Raheem Kassam, Jack Maxey, Congressman Matt Gaetz, the Firebrand, Stephen K. Bannon in the War Room. We're going to return in just a moment. Just a programming note at 12 noon from the Republican National Committee's headquarters on Capitol Hill. Rudy Giuliani, the entire legal team of the president, will be giving a live press conference that will be covered in its entirety.